Hello and welcome. My name is Mike Dawson from the Action Factory. This is the Solutions Toolkit. I expect that you are in some way a youth worker, whether that be residential care, youth clubs, youth work, social work, any of those professions. And you're here to find out about the Solutions Toolkit. The Solutions Toolkit is a framework for working with young people in a care environment. So I'll tell you a quick story. It was some time ago now. We were in a hotel having a meeting, you know, the type of place, upside down glasses, jugs of water, free pens, all that kind of thing. We're having a meeting, and in the middle of the meeting, a couple of guys come storming through the door, straight to the front of the meeting, to the desk, and started to open up the briefcases and take files out and all that kind of thing. So we were just sat kind of staring at them until eventually one of them finally looked up and nudged his friend and realised they were in the wrong meeting. And a pair of them quickly put the files back in, slammed the cases shut and ran out the door, and we carried on what we were doing. So in the same respect, I know that we can do a little bit of where's the toilets, which way are the fire escapes, what time's lunch, and all that kind of stuff that we do in these training sessions, a little bit about me. We've got plenty of time for that. But first of all, I want to make sure that you are in the right meeting. So here's a clue for you. You probably, if you were anything like me when I was in various roles in youth work, believed deep down that you were best placed to support your clients not only in a crisis, but before a crisis, during a crisis, and after a crisis. And as part of the Solutions Toolkit, I'm going to hopefully convince you that this is the case. Many years ago, as a young kid, I was in local authority care. And one of the things we used to do is we used to ask the staff who was on duty the next day, so that we knew in our little residential home who was working. And sometimes we'd even force the staff to go into the office and check the rota, and they'd come back and tell us. And when they told us, there would be a kind of collective groan or a collective cheer, depending on who the member of staff was. So, you know, maybe 20 or 30 years later, I'm the staff, and I'm the guy that's driving the minibus, and I'm the guy who the kids say, hey Mike, you know, who's on duty tomorrow? And sometimes it would be me and someone else, so I would tell them who was on duty, and exactly the same thing happened. There would be a collective groan or a collective cheer. And what struck me many years after that was I did as well. Inside, I cheered and I groaned, depending on who I might be working with the next day. I think that was fascinating. And if you work in residential care or even in education or anything like that, you probably have the same story. And that was when I realized, why is that? Why is it that it makes a difference to anybody who's on duty that day? So let me ask you a question. And this is a question I could never answer when I worked in residential care and youth work and all of that. What model or framework do you use as a team when working with your young people? Now, if you're anything like me, we could not answer that question. It really didn't have an answer. It would be varied depending upon people's background, hence, you know, the groans and the cheers. So what if there was a framework? What if there was a framework that we could all work to? What would it look like? Now, I thought about that, and I thought about the huge demands it would require to have anything like that. Firstly, it would have to have absolutely no effect on your regime, your personality, or the rules of your establishment. If this universal framework was going to work, it must keep its hands off, you know, your establishment and what you do. And so by the same token, it would have to be at home in any environment. Let's face it, if it's going to be a universal framework for working with young people, it would have to be at home in a residential home, in a school, in a prison, or reform centre, or anything like that. It would also need to be effective without problems, without crisis. It would have to help people improve their lives, the young people you work with, improve their lives without any crisis or any problems. If it was going to be a universal framework, we'd have to make it accessible to everybody, all members of staff at all levels. And it would have to be as fluid as your job. And I know from experience doing a lot of the jobs that you guys do, from youth work to residential care, social work, talk therapy, all of those things, I know from experience how fluid your role is, having had to operate in those different environments. Now, you can probably tell that if I've got that smug expression on my face, I think we've got that. I think we've got the Solutions Toolkit. We've got a way of ticking all of those boxes. And I'm going to tell you how we are going to do that. We're going to do it using what I call the 3 threes. The 3 circles, or should I say, the 3 foundations of what we do are circle 1, which is you, circle 2, which is your clients, and circle 3, which is the toolkit itself. That is the actual techniques that we're going to teach you to work with your young people. The next of the 3s is, of course, the 3 A's, and the 3 A's are woven into everything that we do, okay? And that is to adopt, to adapt, and abandon. That is to take these techniques that we're going to give you, we're going to help you to either adopt them verbatim, we're going to help you to adapt them to your working environment, and also possibly to abandon some of these tools. And in doing so, you're going to create a bespoke toolkit that works entirely for you and the job you're doing. I was an electrician in a past life, and I could not turn up to a job without some idea of what the framework of the job was. I had to have the right tools with me. Was it rewiring a house or just connecting a socket? And it's the same for you. You do very fluid and different roles, and therefore you're going to need a fluid toolkit that works exactly for the role that you have. Now, I've always been really flattered and inspired by something a client of mine said to me. The Solutions Toolkit should be the minimum standard when working with young people. I thought that was incredible, and now I agree. And let's face it, if you're going to have a goal, if you're going to have a challenge in life, make it huge. And this is huge. And this is where the 3 M's come in. Now, the 3 M's are kind of my 3 horsemen, the 3 challenges that we've all got to making something like this standard. So the first one is mobility. That is, we all know how difficult it is to get teams together and move them around, get them all in the same place and get them into training sessions. You know, this is even before COVID or after COVID. It's difficult to move teams around. It affects your service and all that kind of thing. So that's why I designed the training to be online, video-based, exercise-based, and you are able to execute the training at your leisure and discretion. And it really these days doesn't matter if you're doing some of the training on a train, on a remote location, in another office, or a group of you together from various offices. The second one is membership. Now, by membership, I mean that when someone like me comes along, trains you as a group, I get in my car and go, and you go back to work to try and make this training work. That was very difficult when new members of staff come along, or you wanted to recap on some of the work that you'd done. You had to revert to your own notes. You couldn't revisit the lesson that you did. Now, by membership, depending upon our relationship, you have access to all of the content from the training originally, and of course new and updated content that's constantly being added, and the community that's available around that. The third one is probably the biggest one, and that is money. Money, training budgets, sometimes squeezed, managers trying to get as much as they can out of the budget. And with this, I think we're delivering this level of training along with all the extras that we put in and the PDFs and everything else constantly available at a price that is really kind of laughable compared to what you might expect to pay for regular training. So that is the Solutions Toolkit in a nutshell. Thanks for listening. I'm really excited that we go forward now and go a little bit deeper. If you're still with me and you still believe in what I said, if you agree with me that you are best placed to support your young people in a crisis, then thank you for being there, because we're going to go deeper now into what I've talked about. Really excited to share this training with you. So thanks for being there. My name's Mike Dawson, and this is the Solutions Toolkit.